you might be hot, you know, so it's a good way to take some of your aggression and your passion out on the weights or whatever. So that's a good way. And then I love music. So music is kind of a way I like to escape. So I would say, yeah, just listen to, you know, some of my favorite artists, taking my mind off of it. I would say those are the best things. Besides, you know, alcohol, stuff like that.
That's funny. Yeah, meditation is amazing, and I hear that on hear what you said about it really helping and transitioning in the next day. I don't know. I feel like there's something about clearing your mind and clearing a slate so that tomorrow you can think on a more positive, clearer note. So, some great advice outside of the drink. I'm kidding. Okay, so being an agent is a lot of work. Like I think people underestimate how much work you put in on a daily basis. The term no days off can really be applied to that position. So how are you able to keep a work-life balance and not just get consumed into work?
Hmm. Honestly, that's still something I need to work on, especially with school. Because, so, you know, I'm typically in the office from about 8 to 4. And then I have class either 6 to 8 or 6 to 10 Monday through Thursday. So it's really not a lot of time for me to do that. But, you know, I guess one way, you know, I do is, you know, my mom, she gets on me, but she calls me and, you know, we talk a lot on the phone. We probably talk maybe a few times a week, or, you know, just going out with my family and linking with them is the way I escape. Um, and just also just, you know, linking with my friends every once in a while. It's tough though. It's tough because I've gotten calls at midnight before from a player, you know, and it's just you got to be ready and willing to do the work, you know. It's just you got to be available. So I don't know if I have the best advice for that as an agent. I don't know. I still have to figure that out, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really tough, especially when you're first starting off and you want to do it all and you set a whole bunch of goals. You're like, maybe I shouldn't rest. Maybe I shouldn't find that balance. So I hear that. It's tough to
Yeah,
make that
I mean,
decision.
I feel like at this age, you know, I can focus on my career a little bit more. You know, I don't have a kid or, you know, family or anything like that. So, you know, I feel like this is the time for me to dive into my career. So as of right now, you know, I'm trying to, you know, I don't really, I mean, to me, work is life right now. And I think, you know, maybe as I grow as an agent, you know, I think that maybe that change you know, have a family and all that type of stuff. But yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to balance it.
Hmm. Um, so you talked a little bit about school, um, and I wanted to touch on like the agent's exam because that's something that was fairly new to me. I wasn't aware that you had to actually take an exam in order to be an agent. So
Mm.
could you talk about that process, and then could you also talk about could you also give like advice to somebody who is prepping for it? Because I'm aware that you have a photographic memory or you're like really good at retaining information, and all of us are not blessed with that trait. So, how are you? Give some advice to somebody who may not be in the same position you are.
Yeah. So, yeah, first for the process, I mean, the application process is pretty, I would say, arduous. It's tough. I mean, not really tough. I would say it's a little time consuming. You know, they have you fill out the application. Um, they run a background check on you. You know, they do all that type of stuff. Uh, and so you apply on the NBPA website, and probably takes maybe I would say a couple months for them to approve you. So the test is normally every January, I would say. And so I knew I was prepping for this for a minute. So I was reading the collective bargaining agreement for a while I really even um, before I even like registered for the exam or anything. So I studied the CBA for about a year and a half, just taking notes on it, outlining it, and kind of because it's a lot of legal language in it. So kind of just making the terminology, I guess, just easier for me to, you know, read when I'm studying it. I made note cards, all that type of stuff. But also, I mean, I would recommend if you are planning to take the exam, to reach out to somebody who has already taken it, because there was somebody at my law school that took it already, and he sent me over the slides from the MBPA that the MBPA sends out the day before the exam, and so I was able to use that as really a guide for what I should be focusing on and studying, and I was also able to kind of that had some sample questions in it, so I was able to get a feel for it. I personally, the test wasn't hard at all for me. Um, it was 50 questions, multiple choice, open book. So I mean, and you get, I would say, 2 or 3 hours for it. Um, so I mean, if you study for it, you know, you should be able to do your thing and pass it. There's a couple like helpers or aides, for the collective bargaining agreement. I would say the best one that I've seen is Larry Coon's CBA. It's just it's almost like its own outline of the collective bargaining agreement. It kind of puts it in simpler terms, like I was saying. So I think that's probably the main thing that I used, and then along with the slides and all that type of stuff. So yeah, if anybody reaches out to me that they're taking the exam, I just shoot them over the slides that I got when I took it. But they give a review session the day before. It's always in New York, so you have to go to New York to take it. They give a review session the day before for about 2-3 hours. They kind of really tell you what's going to be on the exam, and then you take those slides home. I had a buddy from my law school that was taking the test with me, so we studied together the night before, and yeah, we both passed. So I would say we did our thing.
Nice. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
You take a different approach with your clients than most agents do, and you are really attentive and keen on their needs outside of off the court. Could you explain what you do differently than other agents, and how does that positively impact your clients, their families, as well as yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, to start off, what separates me from a lot of agents is that, I'm a young black man, and I can understand, majority of my clients are, going to be young black men. So I can relate to them on a different level than most agents can. And just, like I said, that my empathy, being empathetic for, the situations they're dealing with. Like I reached out to all my players and even, guys I'm recruiting, just checking in and seeing how they're doing with everything going on. I don't know if other agents are doing that, but, that's something that I feel like needs to be done. So just kind of try, like I said, try to be a mentor to them as well. They're young black men growing up, and this is not an easy industry to be in as far as a basketball player. They deal with rejection more than us. It's tough for their mental. So just being aware of their mental health, I think it's something that I've tried to be aware. I guess I've tried to focus on. Also, just focusing on I would say the black athlete is getting a lot smarter and is realizing that they're a brand. So just working alongside that is something that I've tried to do. Also just keeping up with books. Like one of my favorite books is $40 Million Slaves, and that's something that I recommend all my players to read, just because it talks about just how the black athlete has been used throughout since slavery, and just talks about that dynamic. And I think it's good to understand that as an agent, but also as a player, it's good as well. So I say just being relatable to them is something that I've tried to do. I also I joke around, but I was on the phone with my mom, and I was just like, I'm more than the agent, and Rich Paul kind of coined that, with the more than the athlete. I'm not just going to be the guy negotiating their contracts, all that type of stuff. Earlier today, I don't know if you saw my story, but I was working out. I wasn't working out, but I was rebounding from a couple of my guys earlier today. Just being there. I like to get them outside, thinking outside of basketball as well. So like we have a lot of conversations just about life, women, money, investing, all that type of stuff. And just I don't. I mean, of course, basketball comes first, always. But I tend to like to, maybe touch on other things, what kind of music they do. And typically it's the same music that I like. And so, we'll talk about, I was just joking around because one of my players is from Tennessee. And so I was putting him on some of the new LA rappers like Blue Bus Clan. And I mean, he was already familiar with Nipsey and all those people, but he, he rocked with it. And so, just being able to create that relationship and a genuine connection, I think is what separates me from, other guys.
That's awesome. I think that says a lot, because I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they were saying when people reach out to just show support that are not a part of the Black community, it sometimes feels like it's something they have to do and not something that they genuinely want to do. So to have somebody who's experiencing the same emotions, feelings, going through the same roller coaster as them, it must be nice to feel that support and it be genuine. So that's dope. It's really good. I would love to touch on, actually, I won't go there yet. Okay, so since we're talking about your role and your relationship with your clients and your players, could you talk about how critical your role is as an agent in their success, both inside and out, both on and off the court?
I mean, yeah. So I'll just touch on a little bit of, the process of a recruit athlete and how that goes. So I mean, I've reached out to, high school parents of high school guys, and, kind of starting to try to build a relationship from there. And so even when I'm talking to those guys, I try to hook them up with trainers if I can, link them with, like I said, trainers on and off the court. Just sending their parents advice that, that we get from maybe general managers, about what kids should be working on. But once they are, once they are my client, what we have is we have a pre-draft process. And so the pre-draft process is typically, in a normal year without coronavirus, is about 2 to 3 months. So it's right when they're done with either college or, high school. I guess it's only college right now. And so over those 2 to 3 months, we have them set up. Typically with BDA, we put them in Santa Barbara, where, they have an apartment set up. And then they're working 5 to 6 days a week on and off the court. So making sure that they're, working out, eating good. So we typically get them with maybe like a meal type of service that, makes healthy meals for them. We typically, we also focus on recovery as well. So like making sure that they use the things like the Normatex that they can put on their legs to make sure that, that they're, recovering well as well. Because I mean, if your body breaks down as an athlete, that's tough. You might have to start looking at a different career. Mm-hmm. So just doing stuff like that that's kind of say the pre-draft process. Then we set them up with workouts with the team. So I'm reaching out to all 30 NBA teams typically. It depends on the level of the player, of course, but reaching out to the team, seeing if they want to set up a workout. And what a workout is they'll have the player travel in to their respective city, the NBA teams, and then they'll work them out, of course, on the court, but they also do an interview. So one thing that I've been doing is I'll send mock interview questions to my players, and typically we'll go over it with each other, just how to prepare for an interview, because a lot of you guys, they never had a real job, or not a real job where you have to sit down and interview with them. They have a scholarship typically when they get to college. And, they typically were focused more on basketball than working, even in high school. So just making sure that they're ready for that. How to handle the difficult questions is one thing I like to do with them. But then, so they have a workout. After that, I'll follow up with the teams, see about how they like them, and then BDA, we host a big pro day. And so a pro day is basically where we showcase our guys, our players for that specific draft year. So if they're coming out and they're, entering the draft, that specific draft, we'll have a pro day where, we have about 300, scouts, executives from the NBA, owners, general managers, and they all come to watch our players, just work out. And so typically that's a good time to talk to talk to the, GMs and scouts and see what they think about your player, kind of sell your player a little bit. And so that what I say, I mean, we've gotten guys that weren't on draft boards drafted from that pro day. And so that's kind of a big thing that we do at BDA that I think can really make or break a career. Like I would say a good example is Josh Richardson. He plays for the Philadelphia 76ers. He came out of Tennessee. Coming out of Tennessee, he wasn't the highest touted. He wasn't really on the draft boards like that. I would say he was in the top 100, but draft is 1 through 6. He wasn't on that draft board. And then he killed our pro day. Killed it at our pro day. Miami Heat, watched him. They loved him, and so they ended up bringing him in for a last-second workout right before the draft, and they ended up getting drafted 42nd. I want to say to them. And he's doing very well for himself. I would say he's made over $60 million in his career so far, and he's still relatively young. So I would say that's a big part of the process. So after that, we're called on the draft day. Draft day is an all-day thing for us. I'm in the office till 1 a.m. typically on draft day, and that's because even if your guy doesn't get drafted, you're reaching out to teams to see if they want to pick him up for a two-way, or if they want to go to Summer League, which is in Vegas, where, a lot of guys get to showcase their talent. And so just, we're really like it's almost, you are in sales, you're selling your player, as bad as that kind of sounds, you're selling your player to these teams. And I would say, a good agent can make or break a career. I would say, and then after, the player is on the team, we're typically the ones that work along with the team, being like kind of the liaison between the player and the team. If the player has an issue, he'll typically come to us first. At least we hope he does. And he brings it up to us, and we'll, kind of counsel him on how to handle it with the team. But then we'll also reach out to the team like, oh, so-and-so is not happy with this. I mean, also, of course, it depends on how good your player is and, how much you can say to a team. But, just making sure that they're handled, you know what I mean? So that's, I would say, and then we negotiate their contracts. So that's, of course, the biggest part of our job is negotiating their contracts. And so you're almost like a lawyer for them as well. But yeah, it encompasses a lot of different things. Like I said, you're almost like a negotiator for them, a lawyer. Some people will say you're a babysitter sometimes.
Mom and dad and sister and uncle. No,
everything.
I get that.
You're everything for them. Sometimes you train her. Like I said, I was rebounding for my player today, and but that's just part of the game. And also, but like I would say, the main thing is really, making sure that their mentals are okay. Like I said, they face more rejection than we do as basketball players, and it's tough to keep trying out for a team and they don't like you, and just keep going and keep going back. Sometimes as an agent, you got to almost, be able to talk them off a cliff, and be able to calm them down, make sure that they're, back centered, they're good. And so I would say that's kind of the main, thing that we do, is making sure that their mentals are good as basketball players.
That's where it all starts, right? If they're not good mentally, when they get on their court, when they get on the court, they're probably not going to perform.
Yeah, exactly.
To the best of their ability.
An example of that has been Paul George in the playoffs, and he actually touched on his mental health being affected, just being away from his family, and not being able to see his young baby. He said that affected him. He was kind of really in a dark place, and you could see that in either 2 or 3 games in the playoffs, he was not himself. He's normally a superstar in the league, and he was playing below average. Maybe averaging like 8-9 points when he typically averages 27 to 28. And he talks about how his mental health was not good for a second, how he needed his teammates to lift him up. So just mental is everything. I would say mental is the most important thing when it comes to being an athlete.
I agree. I think it's the most important thing when it comes to being a human. But for sure, I can only imagine being an athlete because you're dealing with so much that person that may not be in that position would not have to deal with. So it's like added stress. So I agree 100%.
Exactly.
I want to touch on the fact that you spoke a little bit about being in law school. You talked about contracts, how important they are, something that you do frequently. Is that a reason why you went to law school? If not, can you talk about why and how much it's helped you and benefited your career?
Yeah. So, I mean, when I came into USC, I was planning on being a business major, actually. And I mean, I think that, getting your MBA and is also another alternative to be an agent. Because you don't have to be a lawyer to be an agent. It's not necessary. It's not required. You really don't even have to go to college. I mean, especially now with the Rich Paul rule, they made it so if you have enough experience, you don't even need a college degree. But a mentor that I had, it was actually crazy. In my first class, my freshman year, I did a presentation about being an agent, and one of the girls in the class was like, "Oh, my dad's an agent," and she kind of just it turned out to be Steph Curry's agent, and the head of Octagon basketball. Giannis is over there, Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he is a lawyer, and he was the first person who kind of put it into my head. So once he's kind of put that in my head, I was like, I took a couple political science classes. I was like, oh, okay, I'll really rock with this anyway. And so after that, I knew law school was going to be in my future. But another reason why, besides just, him giving me that advice is if you are an agent and you're not a lawyer, you're going to have a lawyer on your team. And so for me, I looked at it as I don't want to have to rely on anybody else to get my job done. And that's really my main reason for being a lawyer. Of course, down the road, if I get, if everything goes as planned and I get a lot of clients, I won't have the time to do the legal work. So I probably will have a lawyer on my team, but I don't want to have to feel like I need somebody. I can get this done by myself. And it just helps with the understanding of the contracts, like you said. I draft a lot of contracts, especially for our overseas players. So just kind of knowing how the language works and just all
It's
that
like
is
a
good.
different language.
Is.
It's a different language. I've been looking through contracts for the past 2 weeks, and I was just telling my sister, I've been just staring at them because it's like, what does this even mean? It's like hereby, therefore, hereinafter, and then at the end, it's like actually what is supposed to be said. But sorry, I understand completely. I think cutting that middleman is really important. But it also helps you do your job better because you don't want to run to somebody else to be like, what does this mean? And you want to be able to lingo, it's our own language for real. So.
But yeah, I mean, and also, they offer sports classes. Like I've taken legal issues in sports marketing, which I felt like is good. I'm taking advertising law right now. Was supposed to take a sports law class. They canceled it, so I had to. I was pretty upset. I actually, wrote an email to the dean about that, about them not supporting, sports people. But also, yeah, like they have classes like negotiations and all that type of stuff, and you kind of really learn how to get your point across without offending others. And I think that's important, especially in this industry, because you never know if you're gonna have to, come back and talk to somebody. If I'm disrespectful to an NBA GM just because my player is really good and I can do that, maybe my next player may need a job. I can't reach out to him. I have to make sure that I keep my relationships good while still accomplishing my main goal, which is to get my player the best contract possible. And so kind of playing that line and kind of being able to go back and forth and still come to an agreement, even though, two sides. So like another class I took was mediation advocacy. And so I think that was huge in kind of really understanding, the emotions behind a negotiation and just really learning that typically there's always something underlying that what the person wants, right? Or what the other side wants. And so getting to that point, without causing an emotional ruckus, without, rubbing them the wrong way, is huge, I think, as an agent. And so being in law school has kind of helped me with that as well.
Yeah, communication is everything because how you think you're saying something and how somebody takes it can be two completely different ways, and then there could be
Exactly.
burning of bridges, and even though that wasn't your intention, it's just a whole thing. So yeah, definitely agree. Um, can you play devil's advocate, and can you talk to us, for those who may not know and may not completely understand, how something like holding off on playoff games and postponing games and stuff like that can affect players?
Are you saying like in response to the shootings and everything like that? Um,
Just to play devil's advocate, I know everyone has their own opinion, but just for those who may not be aware of how that may affect somebody that is on the court, could you touch a little bit about that?
yeah, for sure, for sure. So I mean, for one, I'll just talk. At first, I'll just talk about how a break, in somebody's, rhythm, I guess, or in their, I can't think of the right word for it. Um, but I guess just, in what they do day to day, how breaking that up is it can be tough. Like there was reports that LeBron, he wasn't upset, but he just felt sorry,
Sorry,
he
could
just
you
felt
repeat that one
blindsided.
more time?
Yeah, sorry. I said he felt blindsided about what Milwaukee did. He wasn't against it, but he just was like, he had a game later that day. And so a game day routine is we're up at 9, we're 8, 9 in the morning, breakfast. Then we're doing film. Then we have a shoot around. Then we might have our individual workout. Then we have this, we get our minds right for the game. And so to break that without them, without really letting the other players know was tough because he spent the whole day prepping for a game that got canceled, that they postponed. But I would say I am very proud of what the athletes have done. I feel like the NBA and the WNBA has led the charge as far as with other leagues because baseball games are still going on until the NBA canceled their games, and then the rest of the games that night for baseball got canceled. Naomi Osaka, I think, came out and said that she wasn't going to play in a tennis match, etc. And so I think, like I said earlier, the black athlete is getting a lot more smarter. Let me not discredit, what athletes have done in the past. Because, like I said, I haven't said that, but Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, they've done huge things for our people. So I don't want to discredit, but I would say it wasn't the majority of the athletes really speaking up. And I feel like nowadays, all the athletes know what's going on. They are woke and they're speaking out about it and they're using their platforms to educate. Because there's a
Standing in
lot
their
of fans.
power.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of fans that love the basketball players, but they may be racist or as soon as the game turns off, they don't treat black people the same way. They're a
Mm-hmm.
fan of them, so I think just kind of putting that in their faces and letting fans like that, because I mean people like us, we already know, we already know what it is, and of course it's always good to see your favorite player thinking the same way you think, but I think reaching those other people that typically they probably maybe choose to ignore it, or they don't, they want to stay away from the issues that America and the rest of the world has as far as race goes. But I'm glad you brought this up because I feel like we do ask a lot of our black athletes, and I feel like sometimes it's too much. Where I was actually having a conversation with one of my clients, Braxton Key, earlier this week, and he was just saying sometimes it just feels like it's never enough. Whatever the athletes do, it's never enough. And I just think it's unfair that a lot of people were asking them to stop the way they make their living in order for the cause. Because I'm still going to law school, I'm still working in the office, and nobody's asking me to stop my job. And I think it's unfair. And I think we have to trust our black athletes that they're able to not only play and earn their living, but also still, you know, speak out and talk about it. Because a lot of people were against this bubble happening in the first place, right? So say the athletes didn't do the bubble, the league just got canceled because of everything going on. It would have been big for a week or two. Everybody would have been talking about it. But we wouldn't be having these conversations about it right now if they stopped playing. So I think them playing is just as important because, like I said, it builds their brands up, and then they're able to use their brands to then influence a lot of people. And also, you know, thinking about the economics behind it, the money, you know, that they were about to lose almost half their salaries if they didn't play in this bubble. And you know, for LeBron, you know, that's cool. But for like the up and coming athletes, the ones who's on a minimum contract or something like that, that really need that to support their family, you know, it's tough. And it's tough to really ask them to not do that in order to support the cause. But they can also use that money to give back. Like we've seen LeBron start a school. We've seen other players, you know, start schools around the country. We see the initiatives that they're doing. The money that they're putting behind their voices is, you know, just as important. And I think, like I said, I think we need to trust our Black athlete more. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Once my phone is about to die, let me go run and get my charger. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries.
1 second.
We have like 3 minutes left, if that changes anything. Anyways, while we wait, I'm gonna pick something out of the fishbowl. Something fun.
Sorry.
Okay. No, charge your phone. I'm gonna ask a question to people watching. If you have a pet, this is like one of my favorite questions because I've thought about this on numerous occasions. If you could ask your pet 3 questions, what would they be? Do you have a pet?
I mean, I grew up around dogs my whole life. Are they happy? I guess would be one question. Because I think we tend to think that, you know, dogs want to be, you know, pets, you know, so that'd be one question I guess I ask.
Do you love me? That is so funny. I like that question. Okay.
Yeah, like, I mean, are you happy is definitely the main one. I would say, you know, I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. That's the main thing I would say is, you know, are you happy though? Because they can't talk. We don't know, you know, how they're doing, I guess, mentally. So
yeah. Oh, that's sweet for you to be caring like that. Okay, so this last question, or honestly, I'll keep asking questions until it gives me the timer. But for somebody who lives in Canada, we have 2 minutes, so I'm not going to ask the question. I'll probably just post it on Instagram and wait for your answer. But I want to take this time to thank you and everybody who has tuned in to this live. I really appreciate your time and your energy, all the gems you dropped, the questions, all the answers you gave to the questions. They were very thorough. I learned a lot. I know a lot of people can say the same. I'm really looking forward to the next. But yeah, I guess that's it for today.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. I think this is really dope that you're, you know, bringing this and allowing people to use our platforms and to reach everybody.
Yeah, honestly, I've had so much fun doing this so far. We're only like 4 workshops in, but I've learned so much from everybody who I've gotten the opportunity to speak to. And yeah, there's just so many connections and so many relationships being made. So it's honestly been a pleasure. Like, it's been the highlight of my quarantine. So
nice.
But yeah, I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.